Welcome to Petrolicious Talks, conversations, stories, and deep dives celebrating all the automotive world has to offer. Join me, Afshin Behnia, founder of Petrolicious, as we chat with designers and drivers, enthusiasts and entrepreneurs, collectors and craftsmen, examining what they drive and what drives them. Today's guest is Andrea Zagato, CEO of the much-revered Zagato Carrozzeria and third-generation head of this 101-year-old family enterprise. This episode features a visual companion where you can view photos and videos related to this talk. You can find the visual companion at petrolicious.com/Zagato. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, Andrea.
Thank you to you, Afshin.
So I got to congratulate you. Last month, you celebrated your 101-year anniversary, which is no small task given that the whole coach building business has gone away and all the big legendary brands, Bertone, Pininfarina, etc., have been either swallowed up by other companies or they just closed up shop. So congratulations on enduring 101 years and continuing your success.
Thank you. The conclusion of the 100th anniversary, it's 19 April 2020. So it's just a few days that we close our 100th anniversary. And we recapping 100 years of story, we should say that we were lucky, of course. 50% of every entrepreneur history is guided by how lucky you are. But also, if we may say the way that the English used to say, we were very consistent in whatever we have done in this 100 years. Not only in terms of design, we were following always what we call bellezza necessaria, essential beauty, but also because we only made two-door Gran Turismo, compact and very light and aerodynamic cars.
Very nice. And for those who haven't seen your film on Petrolicious, where you explain what essential beauty means, we're talking about not essential as in the sense of necessary, like required, but essential as in of the essence, where you don't put in anything that doesn't belong and kind of the form follows function philosophy. Is that correct?
Is perfectly explained. The essential beauty is you don't put in the design nothing that the car doesn't need to have. So, for example, the school of the other coach builder tend to add heart to the industrial product. We always tend to do the opposite, to take away from the car everything that we believe was not necessary. And at the end of the story, the idea was also well explained by Enzo Ferrari when he was saying that the car that wins the race is the most beautiful. So if you reach the goal you reach the purpose why the car is designed, then the car is more beautiful.
I love that saying. And this whole philosophy kind of stems from your grandfather, Ugo, who started the company, his aero engineering background, correct?
Yeah, correct. He was he went to a technical design school. He started in the early 20s, demonstrating that he was able to build luxury cars, well finished and well done. Many coupe, limousine, and then he had the idea to transfer his background that was aeronautical into the automotive, and he started building what he called fuselage type cars that, especially for racing, were so functional, saving 250 kilos each one. That makes those car unbeatable.
Yeah, that's amazing. Applying that aeronautical philosophy to cars to make them lighter, more aerodynamic. For a lot of us who are, huge fans of not just the Zagato brand, but of cars of that period. It would be a dream to kind of peek into what life was like back then, and how these masters came up with these designs and so forth. I'm curious if you have any personal stories of spending time with either your grandfather or your father at the shop, and when you personally started to get interested in the Carrozzeria business.
I remember my grandfather when he was picking me up at home to bring me at school because my school was on the way to the office, and I remember he has a driver because he was already in his 70s, and they use a black sedan Alfa Romeo 2.6, a kind of representative car. And that's the only reminder I have of my grandfather. Many, many beautiful memories about my father. Since I was spending with him my holidays 1 month every year, and he was driving me around with with the Junior Alfa Romeo Junior 1.3 first, and then with the Alfa Romeo GT Z 1.6. He was a great driver, and he liked to show to me how good he was, to impress me, of course.
Of course, you had your seatbelt on, I imagine.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's kind of cool how your grandfather approached the business from the perspective of a designer, and then your father, I would say, was the gentleman racer. His passion was racing and so forth. Correct?
Yeah, correct. He was basically an early designer, a great technician, while my father, who had a degree in economy at the Bocconi University, like me, he was a gentleman and driver, so he was very much more oriented to clients that he met on the circuit all over the world, where he was also driving one of the company cars.
So when did you really start to get interested in the business, and when did you know that this is what you want to be doing?
I wanted to be a vet, actually, and then later, yes, and I want to buy a farm in Canada with cows, with all kind of animals. That was my original idea.
Wow, that's quite a departure.
Yes, yes, definitely. My father started indicating to me that a university like Bocconi of Milano, finance, economics, marketing would open me every door, even if I would like to have a farm in Canada. It's a dream that I can make it through, but then I have the skill to manage. So he convinced me to move from the idea of doing that school to finance and marketing. And I got a degree, and I received a phone call from Shell, that is the petrol company, to move to London and to follow a career in finance in London. And at that time, it was something very interesting. But meantime, my father was sick. He had the first heart attack. And then he asked me to help him a little bit for a while in the company. So that was the reason why I started working in the company, nothing else. But then I fall in love for the history of the company, the consistency that they follow for so many years, and the final result that was the cars that for me were art pieces. And then that's the reason why I'm still here.
Yeah, that's a little bit serendipitous. Even though it's your family company, we almost lost you to the veterinary life.
Yes, almost.
Yeah, almost. So you have done a nice retrospective classification of the Zagato history into its various decades. And with each decade, it follows a theme from the classics to the aerodynamics to the panoramics and so forth. This kind of worked out quite nicely into these decades. I'm curious, what particular decades stand out to you as the most important or the ones that you really like the most?
I basically like them all because for me it was a surprise when I tried for the first time to apply this scheme to the company history. I learned from Pebble Beach that in the early '90s that car can be treated like art pieces. Then I decide why not to apply a frame that normally is used to judge the history of painters or sculptures. The idea, just to give you an example, when you talk about uh, uh, Salvatore Dali, you have the hyper realist period when he was demonstrating how good he was and how good was his technique in painting. Then he had a second period that was called the period of the stones, and then he approached the surrealist period. So I was thinking, why not to apply to a history like the one of Zagato the same idea of a frame. I discovered that my grandfather wanted to renovate the company practically every 10 years. And then the magic discovered was that if I apply a 10 years frame, so made by decades, to the company, it works. So the different period of transformation really are visible in the product that you are describing in every model that belongs to each decades. Um, and you can follow like a rhythm. So every period, every decade has a reason why. The first that I call the Lusso and Corsa was like the hyperrealism decades of Dali, was the demonstration of capabilities, technical capabilities. And then aerodynamic, the second one was when you see the evolution of the shape of the Zagato, you see how every model progressively are integrating the fenders, the front light, and many accessories, and so on until the latest period that I name the neoclassic in the early decades of the new millennium, and then the latest one, the iconic, when we are celebrating the neoclassic period of the epopea of automotive that was the 50s and the 60s, and later the most iconic model of history.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't answer
Very
your
cool.
question. I didn't mention one
No, yeah,
period I
you
like
love
the
all of
most,
them.
but I love all of them, yes.
Right. You had mentioned in a previous conversation your thoughts about the 70s period, the
Well,
geometric.
that is the period I liked the less, not the decades I like the most. Probably there was a difficult time for the automotive because of the first petrol shock, 1973, and the second one, 1979, who create the expectation that the car were like an enemy that is creating pollution, is occupying the cities. So there was a reaction to the product. So and the car started to be very rectangular, while Zagato never did too much angles on his cars.
Not only did the design become more rectangular, but the production numbers went up significantly as well.
Yeah, this also happened to Zagato. This is probably the period in which we produce the highest number of car ever. If I should recap, is the Lancia Fulvia was made in 7,000 units, as well as about 2,000 were the Alfa Romeo Junior and GT. And the beta Spider, Beta Sport Spider Lancia, was producing 15,000 units, as well as 7,000 was the Maserati Spider. So higher number, but probably less meaningful cars.
Right. And that's quite unusual in the sense that typically Zagato does limited runs of, for the hyper exclusive ones, limited to 9 or 19, and sometimes a couple of hundred or so. And that's probably one of the reasons why the cars are so revered and why their values are so high and so forth. But I think in addition to just the scarcity and the limited number, there's still a magical element to the design, and I want to share a personal anecdote. This was about 20 years ago when I saw on the road, I was driving to my house, and up the street from me, and I didn't know this at the time, but David Sidoric, who's a big Zagato collector, he lives up there. And he was driving down in his Alfa Romeo 1900 SS Zagato in that silver greenish color, seeing that thing come down the street, seeing the iconic Alfa Romeo grille, but not recognizing what model it was. But it was just so stunning. So, at the time, I didn't know whether this is a limited run or not, but it was just such a gorgeous Alfa and such a gorgeous design. I immediately had to go home and research what it was and started looking up all Alfa Romeo models from 50s, 60s to try to guess what I just saw. So I want to ask you, like, in addition to the scarcity and the limited production numbers, what is the magical element that makes Zagato design so enduring, so timeless, and so sought after?
Surely, in my view, is the design approach that is always original, is innovative, and anti-conventional, non-conventional. These three elements belong to every model of the history. We never follow the trend of the market. We always follow our idea that, as I mentioned, was the essential beauty. Just an example, when Alfa Romeo became Italian government company, and when in 1935 they opened their own coach building department, they start making a bigger car, much bigger than before, because of the propaganda of the regime, because they wanted to compete with Mercedes, that was the company they were looking at, because it was the company of their future allies, the Germans. And in that period, my grandfather never applied these marketing rules to his car. He was continuing to produce very light, essential cars, and notwithstanding the fact that the work with Alfa Romeo was diminishing because of this reason. So the coherence with the credo of the company is one of the reasons that made all the car very similar and very consequential. Every model tell you a story of consistency. And this consistency, for me, is one of the main elements who makes the value of the Zagato as collectible car today.
That's great to know. I'm sure it must have been tempting over the years to go after more volume in order to obviously go after more profits and so forth. I'm curious to know, at least during the times that you're aware of under your leadership and under your dad's, how did you guys resist that temptation?
Well, it's not easy, because sometimes you have clients who are asking you four-door sedan or SUV or whatever, and they promise you a big highest number, and highest number sometimes means highest royalties. But the decision to be consistent made us create the possibility today to work for every styling center of the 45 company we are already were collaborating with, without being in competition with the styling center that every major OEM automotive company has today. Because we were never involved in the bread and butter design, but always in the special edition that were limited in number and original and innovative and anti-conventional, non-conventional in design.
And in recent years, I think that your survival has been thanks to your vision of transitioning the company from a manufacturing company to a design and intellectual property company. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
That happens when I complete my study at the Bocconi University, as I told you. Maybe my father was right, because I learned at university that the world of automotive was changing. I learned that the Japanese were inventing what has been described as the lean production, the flexible production lines. And by inventing this new software and hardware system to produce and to assemble car, they are practically killing the idea of making the coupe and the spider outside the company. The major coach builder, not only Italian but also the German, like Karmann, like Pininfarina and Bertone in Italy, were producing all the coupe and the spider for the OEM, but with the possibility for their clients to assemble in-house those models in the same production line of the sedan or the standard donor car, were slowly killing the reason why to exist. I was lucky because I studied when I was in university, and that was my first contribute to the family when I said we should change quickly, because the world, in my opinion, is also changing quickly. And so I decided to move from being an assembly company to a design center.
It makes a lot of sense, and that's why you guys have continued your success. Looking back over your 100-year history, if you were to pick like a handful of Zagato models that really defined what Zagato stands for, what would you say? What would you pick? What would be those models?
I would pick up one car from the 20 and the 30 that for me represent probably the pinnacle of the idea of Zagato design for that 2 decades, and is the Alfa Romeo 8C 2.3 Monza that was also adopted by Scuderia Ferrari. And that car is so simple that you cannot add anything else, and so beautiful without any ornament. It's absolutely the essence of bellezza necessaria. This car also allow me to tell you a little bit more about the relationship between Ugo Zagato, my grandfather, and Enzo Ferrari. They met in 1923 in Milano in the house of Antonio Ascari, and then Enzo Ferrari became agent of Alfa Romeo and was also promoting and selling the coach building of Zagato in that period. And my grandfather returned this support from Enzo Ferrari, who was driving practically only Zagato body, by being a sponsor of Scuderia Ferrari in 1929 when Enzo established Scuderia Ferrari.
That's quite a story. That's amazing.
Yeah, they worked together, and I discovered that the special body made for Scuderia Ferrari in the 7 years of life of the Scuderia were 22 different ones made specially for him. Of course, They won everything. So with Alfa Romeo first, and with Scuderia Ferrari after, in the 20, in the 30, the Zagato coach building models won 8 times Mille Miglia, 4 times Spa Francorchamps, and 4 times Le Mans, and 4 times Targa Florio.
It's incredible track record. That's and I guess that's what you get when you get Ferrari, Zagato, and great drivers together.
That's why I mentioned the Alfa Romeo 8C 2.3 Monza, because it was a car that my grandfather shared with Alfa Corse first, and then with Scuderia Ferrari.
And you discovered this history about the relationship between your grandfather and Ferrari pretty recently, correct?
Yeah, because I was curious to know exactly why in every race of the period. Sometimes they mention that the body was made by us. Sometimes it's not mentioned, but the car is the same, because it depends from description of the car. So when you inscribe the car, you can mention the coach builder or not. Sometimes you say it's an Alfa Romeo full stop, even not telling the type of car, but rebuilding all the history and the car from the picture, because you see the same car participating to different races. Then I discovered that two important things. The first, that Enzo Ferrari was driving practically only Zagato body. And then the Scuderia Ferrari was using almost only Zagato body on this car, saving, as I said before, 250 kilos of body. That means in that period, when the horsepower was not so high, a lot. A second car could be the Aston Martin DB4 GTZ that was designed by Celestino, two engineers, Celestino Zoppi and my uncle Gianni Zagato. The car arrived at the end of the 50s, and if you see the design language of Zagato car in 59, the car represents the pinnacle of the 50s, because just before the Aston was designed, the Giulietta Z was designed, the Abarth 1000 that won the Golden Compass for design, the Bristol 406, and the Porsches. And all these models bring elements that you can recognize in the language of the Aston Martin. So it's probably the car that better represents the evolution of the company in the 30s and the 50s.
Last year, we launched Petrolicious membership to empower and elevate our community who celebrate the Drive Tastefully ethos. From weekly member-exclusive films exploring the world's finest homologation specials or storied classic car workshops, to our quarterly print publication Drive Tastefully, Petrolicious membership is your gateway into the most exclusive automotive content, period. Members receive priority access and preferred pricing to our classic car rallies and gatherings around the globe, and special member pricing on all goods and gear in the Petrolicious shop. Membership is 50% off during our special quarantine pricing starting at $29 per year. Visit us at petrolicious.com to learn more. Coincidentally, Aston Martin is the company that you're doing the most work with today.
Yes. Okay, if Alfa Romeo, it's the most meaningful collaboration for the first 50 years of life of our company, surely Aston Martin is the most representative brand we're working with in the second 50 years of our history. That's for sure. And that's also because of the Aston Martin DB4. Correct. A third car that I would mention is not one car, but is what I call a saga. I mean, a nice, I call it also the Italian job of Ferdinand Porsche. When Ferdinand Porsche asked my grandfather to redesign a 356 Porsche to have it lighter, lower, and more aerodynamic. And this history is interesting because it was a kind of reaction from a victory that my father did in the Avus in Germany circuit in 1955 against the Porsche 356, not one, 15 Porsche 356 that was officially racing for Porsche. He asked to redesign a 356, and my grandfather did the Speedster, then the Coupe, and then the third was the GTL that is well known as the Porsche Abarth. This saga of Porsche, this free model of course, Porsche, allow me today to say if I have maybe the right to ask to Porsche, why not to collaborate again?
Yeah, I certainly hope they take you on that offer, because all three of those are obviously not just successful, but really stunning designs. And of course, I'm biased because I have one of those from your sanction lost program. Thank you for that. But they're just so stunning, such head turners, and they really encapsulate the essential beauty philosophy, because there's really nothing there that shouldn't be there, and that's why they're so beautiful.
The fourth model I would mention is the Bentley Continental GTZ. And this is why, the reason why I'm mentioning it is because we never did the Bentley before this model, and was 2008. Frank Joseph Pefken, who was the CEO of Bentley, approached me at Pebble Beach and he asked me, have you ever done a Bentley in the company history? I said, no. We did a couple of Rolls Royce in the 20, but never, ever we did a Bentley. So he said, well, maybe it's time to start and to do the first model for Bentley. What do you think? Of course, I was enthusiastic about this idea. And this car represents the possibility in the next 100 years to start collaborating with company we never collaborate before. So if it's true that in the first 100 years, we did more than 450 different models of car for 45 different automotive prestigious brands. It is also true that there are some brands we never work with, and this maybe could be one of the objectives of the next centenary, to make new collaboration like we did with Bentley in 2008.
That's great to hear, because all too often, certain brands become a little bit a hostage of their own heritage, and it becomes difficult for them to step outside of things that they're known for. Obviously, you still have to stay true to the brand and the core philosophies, but it's great to see you guys doing collaborations that are new and not necessarily homages to past collaborations that you've done.
Yes. Another car, more recent, so we touch practically every decade or every double decades, is the Maserati Mostro that we have done in 2015. It represents a tribute to a kind of uninterrupted collaboration between our company and the Maserati brothers. The collaboration started in the 1929 and was never interrupted. When the Maserati brothers sold Maserati to the Orsi family, they reestablished a new company named Oscar, and the first car was designed by us, as a number of other Oscar cars made especially for them. With the Mostro, we want to pay a tribute to the racing soul of Maserati. If I may say, the Orsi family brought and developed the street legal soul of Maserati, while the Maserati brother were definitely more oriented to racing. So this car is representing that soul of Maserati today, especially today when the Maserati is definitely, after also the Tommaso period, oriented to street legal cars.
Right. Very good. And that brings us to the last one.
You want another car?
Sure. Yeah.
I would say the next. Definitely.
The next one.
It's my dream in the drawer. I'm working right now. I hope I will accomplish the goal to introduce this car in the early months of 2021. It's an Alfa Romeo, of course. It's because this year was the 110 anniversary of Alfa Romeo. It is because Alfa Romeo has developed a new platform that is technically named Giorgio,
Okay.
on which they have developed two real Alfa Romeo cars like the Giulia and the Stelvio. The two cars are bringing back all the Alfa fans to the epopee of Alfa Romeo with real wheel drive, with very high performance, higher performance than every other competitor. Probably Alfa Romeo has to recover some market shares and some fidelity from the clients. Think that in the 60s there was one Alfa client every 3 citizen of Milan. Maybe
that's amazing.
It's just the time that Alfa Romeo recover these lost times, restarting from Milano and from the first successful collaboration they had, that is with us. So my dream, of course, is to make a new icon with the best range, weight, and power, with an innovative shape and the famous drivability of an Alfa Romeo.
You realize this is like music to Alfisti ears all over the world. I'd love to see a modern Alfa Romeo Zagato, a proper one, built on an Alfa Romeo chassis and everything. So I really hope that this comes to fruition.
It's a great challenge, but we are now giving everything we can in order to achieve this goal very, very soon.
Naturally, in keeping with tradition, it'll be a coupe or a speedster, correct?
It will be, as in consistency with the tradition, a coupe, Gran Turismo, short wheelbase.
Very nice. Can't wait to see what it's going to be. So you recently, a few years ago, you introduced the whole sanction lost program, under which you are reissuing, let's call it recreations of older Zagato designs on period correct chassis, such as the Porsche Zagato Speedster that I mentioned that I'm the lucky owner of. Can you talk a little bit more about the sanction loss? And I would love to know if you have plans for other models under this program to be introduced.
The sanction lost is again guided by the new technology. My grandfather was always trying to be innovative, as well as we try to do the same. When I first approached the company, we were introducing CAD-CAM in 1985. The Alfa Romeo SZ was probably the first car entirely developed by CAD CAM-CAE. So with the support of the computer, we have introduced this way of working in the 90s to every OEM clients we were working with, Lamborghini, Ferrari, Lancia, and Fiat. And more recently, we discovered that the computer allow you through a system that is called the photometric measurements to reproduce mathematical model that are fully respecting the original shape of the car. And this is by the analysis of the picture, original picture of the car. So we have many lost model in our history, since we have developed more than 450 model, all collectible, but not all survive. And so when they haven't survived, this technology allow us to recreate exactly the car as it looked like, as was conceived in the period. And this is why we launch this program. And this program, of course, is coupled by the continuation one that is done together with the OEM.
And so for some of these lost models, you actually have pretty thorough blueprint designs and so forth. And for others, you have to recreate those from period photographs of those models, correct?
Sometimes both. So we have the original figurino in the archive, and of course we have the original picture available that allow us to do the photometrical measurements. Using both, we can recreate the car exactly like it was conceived by the designer of the period. That means my grandfather or my uncle and father. And of course, this sanction loss program is not completed. Every time we discover a car that we think, or I think, should deserve to be brought back to reality. And recently, we were working on two models. One is Alfa Romeo, and is the Alfa Romeo EC Aerodinamica, 1937. That is probably the first Gran Turismo Zagato car for Alfa. The year after Alfa established their own coach building department. And the second one is a car that was called the Abarth Alpha 1000, a car that never reached the stage of being a real car because it has been modified by Abarth, Carlo Abarth, under the supervision of Franco Scaglione. But the original model, in my personal opinion, of course, I should not say that, but is much more beautiful than the final result that Carlo Abarth obtained at the Turin Show 1960. We have in-house the original figurini, original drawing that are signed 1959. And I also have a little 1 to 10 model of this car. With these two elements, we were able to recreate the original shape of the car that looks to me really, really amazing.
Oh, looking forward to seeing seeing those as well, and what those original designs were compared to the changes that Scaglione and Abarth applied to them.
Yeah, you see the language. You can recognize the language of Zagato, how different it is from the language of other designers like Scaglione, Bertone. It's
Absolutely.
really you really understand what consistency means in design.
I'm curious, what do you personally drive? What do you enjoy driving on a daily basis, and what's your fun weekend car?
I go to the office with a Land Rover Defender, Ultimate Edition. Probably is the only one in Italy. It's a car that allows me to go slow to the office and prepare the meeting, call the people, and relax.
Very nice.
You don't have to go fast. On the opposite, you have to go slow.
Right.
But it's a kind of a super iconic car that, in my opinion, will last forever, and is an example of a design that doesn't become old, never become old.
And it should be noted that your house is on the lake, Lake Garda, correct?
No, it's on the Lake Maggiore. It's,
Lake Maggiore. Sorry,
west.
northwest of Milan, which is not too far from Zagato studio.
It's 45 minutes. So I have 45 minutes driving from home to the office every day. 45 minutes to go, 45 minutes to come back. And then during the weekend, I use on the lake some of my Harley Davidson bikes because they remind me the way of driving an old car of the 50s. They are not so easy to be driven. They are not particularly comfortable, but they have a lot of acceleration, and you have to dominate the bike, and they allow you to not to go very fast. They don't allow you to go fast, and the people that are looking at you don't expect you to go fast, but they have a remarkable acceleration that give you a lot of adrenaline when you want to overcome somebody that is in front of you. And this is my hobby.
That's very nice. What do you think of? What do you see for the future of Harley Davidson? I think they introduced that electric bike recently to reinvigorate the company, but to me, it seems so off-brand. I'm curious to get your thoughts on what can save Harley Davidson and where you see it in the next decade or two.
But the idea of Harley Davidson is not built on speed. So no Harley owner is buying an Harley because of the speed. Is buying the Harley because of the dimension of the engine that allow to have a very important acceleration. So, and at very low gear. So immediately you get all the power. So this is also achievable with an electric engine. You have a lot of power immediately provided to you by the engine. So this reason to buy an Harley probably can be achieved also with an electric engine. What is not achievable is the noise. Because the noise of an alley sometimes is one of the reasons to buy one of those bikes. And of course, with the electric car, you cannot reproduce the noise, or if you do it, it will be false. So
Right.
probably not acceptable by the clients.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, despite the massive amounts of low-end torque that an electric motor gives, it just seems so antithetical to what a Harley stands for. So I'll be very curious to see if they can pull that off properly.
The acceleration could be even better.
Of course, yeah.
So from that point of view, I can see it. From a point of view of the noise that it's tracing every Harley that you find around, then I would say no. But noise is not politically correct, maybe for new generation. Who knows?
Sure.
Maybe new generation don't like 12-cylinder noisy car with a lot of pollution. They prefer ecological, politically correct new generation of electric car, but still the acceleration give you a lot of adrenaline. And the American knows that they invented the muscle car with a lot of acceleration, so they know that.
I think in general, it's safe to say the person making the noise enjoys the noise, and the person who has to listen to it maybe doesn't.
Yeah, you enjoy making it, but you don't enjoy listening to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you have to get the new generation behind a nice, proper noise-making machine to really appreciate it. So you shared with us what we can expect in the future with the Alfa Romeo project, which is really exciting. I'd love to just close with getting a kind of a glimpse of what a typical day in your professional life looks like. What is like a day or a week in the life of running Zagato Studio like, and what are the big concerns that keep you up at night?
I normally drive in the morning. The way that I try to avoid traffic jam, so I arrive not or very very early or not very early in the morning, because in order to avoid the moment in which everybody is reaching Milan, since I'm driving from the lake to Milan.
Right.
But I stop 20 kilometers from Milan because the company is in Arese, where it was Alfa Romeo. So at least I avoid the entrance to the city. It's 45 minutes in which I can talk to my wife, I can call the office, I can prepare the meeting. And the same when I go back home late in the afternoon, because I can make resume, I can make phone call. It's a quiet journey, all autoroute, so all straight, relaxing, to go back to our house on the lake. That is a beautiful place where to live. I tend to stay home Friday if it's possible, so to work only 4 days and to save Friday, and to that allow me to have a long weekend on the lake. it is like to be in vacation, in holidays.
Very nice. And what are some concerns that keep you up at night about the business?
My only concern is not to have another project to work for, because the company is today is stabilized. The situation financially, economically is super stable. The only thing that make me very excited is when I can approach a new project. Like now, I give a scoop to you. I'm doing
Right.
with the Alfa Romeo. This is something I am living for.
Very nice. Yeah, that's what always invigorates us, right? The next project, the next big creation.
Yeah, you always have a project if you want to stay alive. The moment you don't have any more project, then immediately you become old and probably I don't would like not to say you don't want to live anymore, but projects are the thing that are keeping all us alive. And could be a project of a real project of a car, could be the project of buying something or achieving something, but you always have to have a project.
Absolutely. Well, I think for the sake of the automotive world, we hope that Zagato remains quite busy for the foreseeable future.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Afshin.
Well, Andrea, thank you so much for taking the time today to speak with me. And this has been great. And I'll speak with you again very soon.
Sure. Thank you to you for your time.
A special thank you to all of our Petrolicious fans joining us from all over the world. Join us next time for another conversation on Petrolicious Talks. I'm Afshin Behnia, reminding you to always drive tastefully.